What's up, everybody? Welcome into Southeastern 16 Bets and Ball Games. I'm Brian Edwards. He's Jay Greeson. Week 3 is upon us. We will get there. Let's start with our good friends at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of 200 large. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online. The game starts here. All right, what's happening, Jay?
Not much. Getting ready for another weekend, and just it's amazing how fast football goes. How long it takes to get here,
Right?
through June, July, and August, and then, I mean, we're almost a month into the college season.
Yep. Let's start with our good, bad, and ugly from week 2. What you got for your good?
I'm going to stay on the Josh Heupel train, and Nico Imaliava is the only thing that's even questionable about him is how to pronounce his last name, because that kid looks the part. And I know he had his first collegiate pick. I know, but that's an NC State team that could very well be in the ACC Conference Championship game when everything's said and done. And Tennessee pimp slapped them. And it was both sides of the ball. It was a Tennessee team that is just a juggernaut right now at almost 600 yards a game and 60 points a game. I mean, and with Nico on the field, I mean, he's now made 3 college starts, and I think the average score is something like 56-4.
Yeah, it's been good. And I didn't even think he played that great or he didn't play great for him. For his standards, I didn't think he played all that well.
No, but there's just a different look when everybody in your locker room believes you've got a dude at quarterback. I mean, think back through the years when teams galvanized. Tebow had that. And I know Nico's got a long way to go to be compared to one of the greats of all time, but everybody in orange believes Tennessee's got a chance against anybody because they've got Nico taking snaps.
Yep. And I had the team total at 33.5 for some of my money and 34.5 over on the Vols. That was my biggest bet on Saturday. That came through. I had a little bit on team total over 17.5, which was a super fortunate winner thanks to the pick six and the late field goal. And then I had the Vols. I'd gotten a good number at 7. So the Vols were very, very good to me. So, yes, I'm with you on good on the Vols. All right, let's also go good for me on South Carolina. And nice win, 31-6. But it's about this front 7 for South Carolina, particularly front 4. I don't want to leave Debo Williams, the stud linebacker, out. He had 6 tackles, 2 tackles for loss last week. And I don't want to leave the safety Nick Emanwari out as well. You had a team high 7 tackles and a pick 6 to put the game on ice. But these 2 defensive ends, the transfer from Georgia Tech, Kyle Kennard, who already has 4.5 TFLs, 3.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. And then the 5-star freshman I talked about a little bit last week, Dylan Stewart. This guy was getting triple teamed and beating triple teams against Kentucky. He now has 2.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a pair of QB hurries, but he's drawing penalties. And what a great matchup. And I'm sure the NFL scouts will be all over Williams-Brice because these 2 projected offensive tackles for LSU are projected to go in the first round. In Will Campbell and Emory Jones. Those 2 guys going up against Kennard and Stewart is going to be a fascinating matchup. But South Carolina is good at defensive tackle. as well. And we'll obviously talk more about their game with LSU coming up. All right, the bad for Mr. Greeson.
Well, I'm going to stay in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's effort was listless. I mean, and I just is Mark Stoops good at this, or is Mark Stoops good enough to be good at it at Kentucky?
Right.
Because I mean, you're talking about this is now year 12, and he's 74-66, and you're not supposed to get smoked like that against a team that your fans think you're better than.
Yeah. Yeah, and now he's lost to Beamer 3 years in a row.
Right.
Yeah, so that's no bueno. That's no bueno at all. All right. Yeah, my bad. I mean, there's so much good that you saw, but you can't lose that game, Arkansas. You cannot lose that game. But and I'll give you credit. You talked about it a lot over the summer. And you were right, man. Taylon Green's a badass.
Yes, he
An
is.
absolute badass. Arkansas had 648 yards of offense and lost.
Hey, we talked about this too. I mean, I don't want him babysitting my children, but Bobby Petrino can call ball plays now.
Yeah, he can. And God, who knows what happens to that game if not for that pick six? Who knows what happens? I mean, they're up 14-0. They're driving, and then a 73-yard pick six. But then they march right back down and go up 21-7. And, at the time, I didn't blame him that Pittman passed. I think it was tied, wasn't it? He passed on a 42-yard field goal to go for it on 4th and 5, and I was kind of okay with it. I just didn't like the play call. I thought you get Green out in space with a run pass option, but he and the kicker had just missed I want to say like a 38-yarder. He passed on the 42-yarder, but then the kicker ended up making a 44-yard walk-off to force overtime. So I bet he's kicking himself that he didn't go for that there. But for our purposes, assuming you got the late line, because in my contest when I picked 25 games, I had Arkansas plus 7.5. I mean, I had 5 wild bad beats in that contest last week. But the closing line was Arkansas plus 9 or 10. And so Pittman improves to 10-3 against the spread as a road underdog. Arkansas is going to beat some teams this year. So I'm saying it's a terrible loss because you're on the hot seat, but I saw enough to see that Arkansas, in my opinion, I think they're definitely going to a bowl game. I mean, I think
how many of the Hog faithful from Jerry Jones on down are already planning a coup d'etat to give it back to Petrino?
Oh, there's no question about it. If Pittman loses a couple close games like that and the offense is
humming,
yeah. Oh, Petrino will be the head coach by for the Texas game, November 16th. And hey, if Texas is undefeated, watch out in Fayetteville. That is a old school rivalry. And Texas came to Arkansas in week 2, ranked 15th in the country, and got its ass kicked 40-21. So there's my bad. I mean, there's a lot of good about it, and I'll talk about that because I'm betting on Arkansas a couple different ways when we get to their game. All right, the ugly for you.
Well, I got to go to my alma mater, and Peyton Thorne, you got to protect the football, son. There's just no simple way about it. Your defense played well enough to win. That's not a very good Cal team. That's not a very good Cal team whose best player was non-existent, actually.
11 yards on 10 carries.
So you got outperformed by some guy that all he did was manage the game and protect the football. And, I mean, you feel for these kids because they are still relatively young adults. I mean, they're 18 to 22, but I read somewhere that Peyton Thorne's making close to $250,000 in NIL money. Criticism now comes with the territory. So now it's not fair for people to get on his Venmo and start saying you owe me X amount of dollars because you cost me my bet on Saturday. But I also don't think it's out of bounds. I mean, what I simply put on my social media account, which you can follow me on the Twitter right there at that address, is I'm certain Peyton Thorne's a super likable young man. His time as Auburn QB1 needs to be done.
And that begs the question, what I said this summer is why Hugh Freeze didn't go get a veteran from the portal to compete with him.
And hey, I've seen a lot of Auburn people say, well, people were talking about Grayson McCall, and he played terribly against Tennessee.
Yeah.
People talked about Riley Leonard, and he played terribly against Northern Illinois.
Yeah, he did.
And Dylan Gabriel has not had the best of starts at Oregon. So, I mean, there's a lot of hit and miss. But if Peyton Thorne is the answer at QB1 for Auburn at this juncture in Hugh Freeze's tenure, then people are asking the wrong questions in that quarterback room. So whether you're playing him to not scare off a 5-star, I don't care. I mean, Brian Harsin left this place in a disaster, and I hope Hugh Freeze is the guy. But if you're gonna lose a big chunk of that fan base who aches with the Tigers on Saturdays, and a whole lot of people who spend a whole lot of thousands of dollars following them around for football games. If Peyton Thorne is given the keys to this Cadillac many more times.
Is it going to be Hank Brown or the true freshman Walker White getting time, or maybe both this week? I mean, I'm assuming Thorne's still starting, but if
Auburn wins, why couldn't they go get Diego Pavia?
Oh, now there is a really good question.
I mean, you can't tell me. I know Vandy's a private school, but their NIL initiative is not going to come close to the checkbook that Auburn's going to carry to the table.
No, it's not. No, it's not. All right, so my ugly, it's going to be Oklahoma. I mean, they survive and they win 16-12, but let me remind our audience that Houston opened the season, well, first off, picked last in the Big 12 by, most pundits, and they lost at home to UNLV 27-7, and Oklahoma was in a one-possession game. Here, let's see. The entire game, well, no, except for 12 minutes of the second quarter. But the second half, one-possession game the whole way. And,
Houston had the ball until they get the safety. Oklahoma gets a safety to make it 16-12 and theoretically in the game.
Yeah. So that was ugly, Oklahoma. And watch out for the Green Wave. The Green Wave had K-State looking like it was in trouble for a while, and then K-State got a huge sack and long scoop and score early fourth quarter that completely turned that game, kind of like the Oklahoma State pick six. Okay, before we just start breaking down games, our friends at BetOnline have updated a few games of the year that pertain to some SEC schools, so I will share those. Why does this thing go down? All right, I've now got Georgia -4 at Bama on September 28th. They've got Texas -13 to Oklahoma on October 12th. They've got Georgia still -1.5 at Texas October 19th. And that is that. But we do also have look-ahead lines for next week. And I thought I had my odds page up, but I'll get it up right here because we've got DraftKings has several games for week 4 that involve SEC teams. And I'm almost there. And come on. All right, here we go. We got Auburn. Or let's let Jay guess. Auburn at home to Arkansas next week. If you got to take the bets, what you making the spread?
Auburn -2.
DraftKings has Auburn -3.5. All right. We also have, I'll just mention, not SEC, but Utah -1.5 at Oklahoma State. But Cam Rising's not playing this week, so that'll be determined by his availability. And oh, there's another bad beat from last week. Utah's up 23-0 in the second quarter, and Cam Rising leaves the game with a hand injury. They end up winning 23-12 and not covering a 14 point spread. I guess that's all the SEC games for next week.
No, did you mention Tennessee, Oklahoma? Didn't I see you that on your social media feed?
You sure did.
I'm getting on Tennessee pretty early because I think as long as it's under 3 right now, that's going to be closer to 7 than to 3 by the time kickoff happens.
DraftKings is showing 3.5 for Tennessee, and thank you for mentioning that because I just simply overlooked it. Okay, let's get to the week 3 action. We've got a couple of really good ones at noon. You want to start with Bama at Wisconsin or LSU at South Carolina?
I like in terms of betting, I'm not going to touch Bama, Wisconsin.
I'm not either.
I don't know. Really, I mean, for 3 quarters, USF was standing there toe-to-toe with Bama. You want to talk about one of the more misleading final scores of the week 2?
Yeah.
Holy buckets!
Right.
But
hey, why did he go for it on 4th and goal at the 5, down 8? What is he doing? That was so stupid.
I say we go to Columbia because I think you and I have different opinions on this one. I think this is an ideal spot for an LSU team that needs a moment, and I think South Carolina they've heard all week about how great their effort was against Kentucky. LSU is bringing a whole different cadre of dudes in there come Saturday, and you're right, that defensive front has been everything, if not more, than anybody could expect for South Carolina. But you also referenced both of those projected first-round tackles, and I mean, if you're going to negate, if it comes close to a push, South Carolina's defensive line against LSU's offensive line, LSU's better everywhere else.
Right. Yeah. And look, I worry about Lenoris Sellers. He played better last week. He did fumble 3 times, but none of them were lost. So that stat kind of got lost. He does worry me with turnovers. But I worry for LSU that Dylan Stewart or Kyle Kennard's going to force some fumbles on Nussmeier. Nussmeier's been terrific, by the way. 6 touchdowns, no interceptions last week. But there was another ugly performance that was a 1-possession game, midway through the third with Nichols. So I'm going to go South Carolina +7. Just a couple of stats I'll throw in there. So as a road favorite under Brian Kelly, LSU only 2-4 ATS. And then if we count neutral fields, talking about the 2 FSU games in Orlando and New Orleans and a bowl game as a favorite. So if we're doing neutral and road, Tigers are 3-6 ATS under Kelly as a favorite when they're not in Baton Rouge. So I'm going to go South Carolina plus the 7. All right, Alabama at Wisconsin. I think it's a pass for both of us. I'll just say Wisconsin's been very unimpressive. They get 2 lackluster wins. They beat Western Michigan 28-14 and South Dakota 27-13. Their stud running back Ches Malusi is only averaging 3.8 yards per carry against those 2, a MAC team and an FCS team. I'll also say that Wisconsin's only been a home underdog twice at Cam Randall in the last decade. 2-0 against the spread, both losses to Ohio State, but they cover as double-digit dogs.
Let me pick your brain real quick on just one thought on this one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nooner. It is Fox's opportunity to have Alabama, which seems very strange. But let me ask your opinion, because you do this a lot more often than I do. This screams to me about a game that you would follow and wager once it starts, because I think you'll be able to tell very early the speed difference. If Alabama comes out and is flying all over the field, they may run circles around Wisconsin.
Right.
Now, I don't have a good feeling on it because Wisconsin could win the football game playing at home, jacked up crowd. We're not entirely certain how comfortable Milroe is in the new offense and with the new coaching staff. Now, the Williams kid looks like the next great Alabama wide receiver, but if Wisconsin makes this a game, it's going to get tight. But if you look up and Wisconsin has a couple quick 3-and-outs and Alabama streaking up and down the football field, this may be one that you get on in game a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if the line was 14, I'd probably lay it with Bama. I just can't lay more than 14, and it's not going back down that way. It's drifting up toward 17. In fact, let me update where we are at Bet Online for this one. Bet Online is at 16.5, total of 49 and a half. The way I would want to get on an end game is if Wisconsin got out to the lead, and we get late first half, and Wisconsin's up 14-6, and I can get Alabama, like -4 or fewer. That might be the way I would look at an end game. But yeah, we'll see. But every time, like Wisconsin was, it's shocking. I thought Luke Fickell would do great up there. His tenure through 15 games right now has been very disappointing. But I go back to the LSU bowl game. And I know it wasn't Jaden Daniels, it was Nussmeier, but Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors played, and Wisconsin was winning that whole game. So they went up against, elite SEC talent last year and acquitted themselves well. We'll see. So, but like Jay said, and I'm the same, it's a pass for me. One more stat. Alabama 4-8 against the spread last 12 as a double-digit road favorite since the start of 2021. All right, 12:45 Eastern, Boston College at Missouri, SEC Network. Right now, Bet Online has Missouri at 16 with a total of 53.5. Missouri, well, they've dealt out two bagels, 51-zip to Murray State, 38-zip to Buffalo. And
is that about Missouri or is that about the competition?
A little bit of both, probably. Luther Burden left the game in the first half last week, but he is good to go. So is Theo Weiss, but Brett Norfleet, good young tight end, shoulder injury, missed last week's game. He's questionable, and BC followed up that pimp slap they gave the semis by beating Duquesne 56 to zip. Boston College 25-15-1 against the spread last 41 games as a road underdog. I like both these teams, and that's why I'm not going to have a pregame bet. I don't think you are involved in this game, aren't you?
Well, I've got a like. It's not one of my 5 favorites, but I do think Boston College is the side to play here, getting close to 17, especially if you can get above that 17 number. They've got, if not the best offensive line, one of the top 5 offensive lines in the country. Because what Florida State does have is a bunch of future NFL dudes playing on the defensive front, and Boston College shoved them around. And I also think the opportunity for Bill O'Brien to have a running quarterback and theoretically an off week. Duquesne was not going to be able to play with Boston College. So he's spent a fair amount of time getting ready for what could be a big step. Is this the only ranked on ranked game this week?
It might be.
Because Missouri has moved up into the top 7 or 8, and I think Boston College is 24. But and I also think if you're just dying to play this game, I think the over is the better side of the two as well, because Missouri's going to sling it around, and if Burton's healthy, Brady Cook's going to be way better than DJ Youngley. So that Boston College defense is going to get stretched.
The only other ranked matchup is Arizona at Kansas State on Friday night. So you're right, it's the only Saturday ranked matchup. So you're going to be patient and wait to get a 17, and I think.
Yeah, and then this is a slight play. There are a couple other plays I like better in the league this week.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to get a shot at a 17. I would just patiently wait. Okay, let's go UAB at Arkansas, and UAB got the snot beat out of it at ULM last week, 32-6. All right, this is a 4:15 Eastern, so that makes me think SEC Network. Bet Online has Arkansas at 24.5. The total is 61.5. Okay, I've got some plays in this game. What you got?
Well, as long as they don't come out morose from letting a game get off the hook last week, this really feels like something Petrino may put 59 on the board. And you look up, and this is one of those 45-7 at halftime numbers, and then they empty the bench. So I don't see how the Blazers, if you're gonna take a 20+ loss to the Warhawks of ULM, you don't want to go to Vietnam with a pissed off bunch of hogs and a future NFL dude taking snaps. I just don't see how they keep this one competitive.
Yeah, so I'm going to bet the Hogs two different ways. I'm going to bet their team total over 41.5. They score 70 in week one, albeit Arkansas Pine Bluff FCS opponent, but they score touchdowns on all seven first half drives to have 49 at halftime. Like I mentioned earlier, they're second in the nation in total offense behind only Ole Miss, averaging 667.5 yards per game. Talon Green, 645 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. He's also got 149 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Jaquindon Jackson, 250 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, 7.8 yards per carry average. Armstrong missed the opener, but had a big game last week. I think it was 10 catches for 156. Arkansas's offense is humming, and I'm also going to bet them in the first half minus 13 and a half. I noted the 49-0 halftime lead to Arkansas Pine Bluff. They were up 21-7 at Oklahoma State last week, and the 7 from Oak State was a 73-yard pick six. So let's go.
I like that a lot, Brian. It circles back to the conversation. Petrino, not only is he a great in-game play caller, his script is pretty damn salty too. So I expect them to come out humming and even potentially look at. I bet you could get that first quarter number right around 7 or a little lower.
Are you an experienced entrepreneur looking to diversify, or are you an employee that's simply tired of answering to the man? If so, let me tell you about my guy, Andy Ludecke, and his business, MyPerfectFranchise.net. Like you, Andy had it with corporate America. He was married with a kid and another on the way. He wanted to start his own business and did just that. Now he has multiple businesses, and he can help you do the same. Here's how it works. You go to Andy's website, and here's the best thing. It's free, MyPerfectFranchise.net. You set up an intro call, 1-hour consultation. You tell Andy about your passions, your skills, goals, and the time and money you have to invest in this endeavor. Then Andy figures out what sort of business fits your DNA. He registers you with potential franchises. He'll find the best franchise that suits the vision and corporate culture you want. And before you know it, you'll be on your way. And Andy will have you making greenbacks galore. So what are you waiting for? Reach out to my man, Andy Ludecke at MyPerfectFranchise.net.
Well, Brian, I did see a couple of places, depending on which services you're using online, that have Arkansas a lot of 7s and a couple of 6.5s. And I mean, I like both. I like both first quarter and first half. If you're getting them both under the 7 and the 14 number against a UAB team that's just not going to be, I think, ready for Arkansas speed. I think it's important, though, very important, that not only do we tell everybody that we're filming this on Thursday, if you're laying some of these big numbers, be very aware of what the weather is, because the South is going to get some monstrous rainstorms.
I've already been getting it for like 10 days. Okay, so we both have some Arkansas plays, and it's bullish on Bobby P and Talon Green and Jaquindon Williams playing some good ball running back as well. All right, Texas A&M at Florida, 3:30 p.m. Eastern at the Swamp on ABC and Bet Online has the Aggies at 3.5 with a total of 47.5. This game's a straight pass for me. One important note, Eugene Wilson, the Gators' best receiver, first injury availability report yesterday, albeit Wednesday, had him as questionable. Apparently, he suffered a lower body injury at Monday's practice. That's really bad news for the Gators if he can't play, but I have no idea if he's going to play or not. Again, we're recording early Thursday afternoon. Yeah, hard pass for me on this. Your thoughts?
Completely and totally agree. I don't trust Napier. I don't know if Texas A&M. I mean, a week after that loss to Notre Dame and what we thought was like a really good season opening kind of slugfest, Notre Dame gets pushed around by Northern Illinois. So that takes some shine off of that game in College Station. But there's no way I can trust Napier. And if you're in a position that you've got to play this one, I don't think anything looks better to me, especially if the wide receiver doesn't play, than the under. Because I think this is two pretty good defenses and two offenses who have no idea who they are.
And I'll point out that this morning, when I'm got my rough draft of my SEC notes that I'm doing early this morning. I'm talking like 7 a.m. The total was 46.5 or 47. And now, just in the last 4 or 5 hours, it has moved up to 40. Actually, Bet Online just went to 49. A lot of books at 48, a couple of offshores 48.5, but Bet Online is now 49, and that's a key number for a total. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to play it, but I agree with that. If you got to play something, I would lean under 49. All right, let's go. Georgia at Kentucky, and I'm going to find a way to get involved with this one. Bet Online right now has Georgia 24 with a total of 45. What you thinking here?
I'm thinking a couple of things. One, if Kentucky can't block South Carolina, how in the hell are they going to block Georgia?
Right.
Two, Carson Beck looks like him now. I mean, he's cool in the pocket. He's standing behind an offensive line that's got a whole bunch of future NFL dudes, and they're going vertical. So there are other games I like more, but if you're going to get on this one, I don't see how, after what we saw last week, you can back Kentucky here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Georgia or pass, but I'm already laying that huge chalk number with Ole Miss that we'll get to in a minute. So instead of laying the 24, which again, if I had to pick it, that's what I'd do. And I'll point out Georgia's minus 13.5 or 14 in the first half, and I wouldn't be against those. But my favorite play, the one I'm definitely doing, is Georgia's team total over 34.5. Now, I know they only got 34 against Clemson, but Clemson's defense much saltier than Kentucky's. And Brock Vandegrift's confidence has to be shot. And you know his old teammates are going to be all in his ear pregame talking a bunch of noise to him. I think Georgia will probably have a defensive touchdown, maybe a special teams touchdown. I mean, I think they get at least 38, probably more like 45. Georgia's team total over 34.5 is my official play. All right. I know we both like the Rebels, so let's go next to Ole Miss at Wake. And I feel like this one's kind of further down the board. Yeah, here we go. So we've got our friends at Bet Online. Wow, Ole Miss has come down a little bit this morning, down to 22.5. Heck, when I posted, I think I got 23.5, I believe. Yeah, so down to 22.5. All right, some reasonings for me backing Ole Miss. Kind of like Jim Grobe had it going with Riley Skinner there for a few years. Dave Clawson had it going real nice with Sam Hartman for a few years, including 11-win season, an Orange Bowl appearance, ACC championship game appearance. But since Sam Hartman announced he was transferring to Notre Dame, The Demon Deacons are 5-9 straight up, 4-9-1 against the spread. Could not beat Virginia at home last week. Virginia threw for 357 yards against Wake's defense, which is most likely going to be without its best player, defensive end Jasheen Davis, 40.5 career tackles for loss, 21 career sacks. He's doubtful after missing last week's game. The Rebels are 6-1-1 against the spread in 8 games as road favorites since the start of 2021. I think Ole Miss hands out a beatdown in Winston-Salem, where I've been one time only, to watch my Gators kick Illinois' ass in the 2000 NCAA tournament round of 32. And then I watched Kansas, an 8 seed, give Duke all it wanted with a true freshman point guard, Kirk Heinrich, dominating the National Freshman of the Year, Jay Williams from Duke. But Duke won a thriller. Anyway, go ahead.
Like you on Arkansas, I think I'm gonna take it hook, line, and sinker and go a couple of different directions. The weather looks like it's going to hold off until early next week in Winston-Salem. I like Ole Miss laying the 22.5 for the game, and I'm also on Ole Miss's team total over 23 in the first half, because if you're going to give up 350 through the air to Virginia, Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin are about to come there and barbecue you.
Yes, they are. Yeah,
I think
you bet Ole Miss any way you want. Any way you want.
I mean,
anything you want. Team total's over.
Team total,
quarter,
lay
half.
a quarter. I mean, lay a half. And we talked about it a little bit last week, and I think it's going to be kind of a resounding theme. One, Ole Miss kind of has a feel of what LSU was last year, about they're going to show up and try to score 56 on you every single week. And two, what we talked about through the summer, Ole Miss has as few mulligans as any Power 4 conference team, because that schedule is so weak. So I don't think that's lost on Lane.
Yeah, and Missouri's schedule that I also called as weak as Ole Miss's. Well, now it looks a little tougher. Boston College, doesn't look like quite the layup. I mean, obviously it's a 16.5 point spread, but Boston College has been impressive. And Diego Pavia comes to town next week. And, the game at South Carolina, I don't think is going to be as easy as I was thinking earlier in the year, because I think South Carolina's defensive front is going to keep them in all their games, probably, or most of them at least. All right, so yeah, we like Ole Miss any way you want to get down on it. All right, I feel like you have an opinion on Vandy, do you not?
I like Pavia. I like the Commodores. They're going to Atlanta to see Georgia State. I think Georgia State's going to build something with that SEC experienced coaching staff that Dale McGee's put together. But that's not really a place that's going to be intimidating, certainly not for an SEC team. And I think we talked a little bit about it with Nico. Don't you think Diego Pavia has now galvanized the Commodores locker room a little bit to where, I mean, that kid shows up with swagger. You mentioned it last week. He said twice, "I'm the best player in the country." Yeah. So, and he believes it. Yeah. So I'm not saying he's right, but I am saying I want my quarterback to believe that. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a Georgia State team that is young. This is a Georgia State team that got lucky to escape late against UTC last week in a 24-21 win. A UTC team that Tennessee baptized the week before. So I think Vandy, I think every game is important to Clark Lee. I don't think there's going to be any chance that they look ahead. I don't think there's any chance they believe the press clippings. I think 10 is a fair price, and I think Pavia covers that pretty easily.
All right, so let's talk Tulane at Oklahoma, ESPN, 3:30 Eastern kick. Our friends at Bet Online Have Oklahoma at 13.5 with a total of 46.5. I will tell you that Tulane only lost by 5 and easily covered out in Norman. That was the opener in 2021, a 40-35 loss, but they had the ball in Oklahoma territory when Michael Pratt was a true freshman. Um, not many of those players are left, but for what it's worth. And then also, and I think I mentioned it earlier, Tulane was ahead a good chunk of the game against K-State last week. In fact, they had a 14-3 lead. They had a 20-10 lead at halftime, and had a 27-20 lead early in the fourth, and it was tied with 8 minutes left. And K-State got a sack, a forced fumble, and a 60-yard scoop and score, and that was the difference in the game. So, but with all that said, I don't have a play on this game.
I hate it in every direction.
Yeah.
You mentioned Oklahoma's struggles last week. There were boo birds actually out for Jackson Arnold, so you have to wonder where that kid's confidence is in what will only be his third start in Norman. But then you also look up, Tulane goes from the Little Apple playing K-State back home to New Orleans, which is getting a ton of rain.
Now no, Tulane was at home last week.
Oh, K-State was at home last week?
No, Tulane was at home last week.
Okay. Tulane was at home last week. It's still a tough spot for going into an Oklahoma place after who knows how much the water affected your practice schedule. And man, oh man, after terrible performances like that, like Oklahoma had, sometimes the bounce back is staggering.
Yeah. So I want nothing to do with that game whatsoever. So, all right, now let's go to. Oh wait, hold on 1 second. Let's go to UTSA at Texas, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, and boy, UTSA is off a garbage performance. What's that look?
Is that still like 49?
I'm trying to find it. Let's see. Okay, here we go. No, BetOnline's got it at 35.5 for the total of 56. You must have you were probably thinking about a different game.
Yeah. Must have been. Must have saw something completely different. No thanks. No thanks on classic letdown spot after playing what would probably be described as the best performance of the young season to date, going to Michigan and just hammering the Wolverines. So, I think the only play you can't trust UTSA against Texas, but I don't. There's 35.5 is you can kill somebody 49-14 and still not cover.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to UTSA last week as they go to Texas State. And by the way, Arizona State and Dillingham go to Texas State tonight. But the Bobcats handed out a 49-10 shellacking to the Roadrunners last week. And like Jay, I'm a pass on that. New Mexico at Auburn, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. And I am not implying that I'm going to have a large wager by any means, but I will have a small wager on the Lobos, who have had a couple of exciting games. They led Montana State, one of the top FCS programs, nearly the entire way. Montana State had to, I forget if it was a 20-0 or a 21-0 rally in the fourth quarter and won 35-31. And then the Lobos gave Arizona problems in a 61-39 loss. So 2 easy covers as double-digit underdogs. They were plus 13 to Montana State, plus 28 Arizona. And right now, our friends at BetOnline, or you go ahead and give your take. Oh, no, here we go. We got it right here. BetOnline's got it at 28 and 60.5. I'll have a small play on UNM.
I think that's the only side you can take. I don't know if Auburn should be favored by 28 going 11-0 in the skeleton drill. I mean, the way they gained 280 yards against a Cal team that is fine defensively and well coached by Justin Wilcox and Peter Sermons, but athletically, they're not anything great. Peyton Thorne's going to be on pins and needles. The crowd is going to be antsy, and it's going to be an uneasy, anxiety-ridden game that I think the only play you can make is the Lobos.
So I know what game you were thinking about with the 49-point number. That was the Tennessee Volunteers, and our friends at Bet Online do still have the Vols at 49 with a total of 62 to Kent State. So look, I'm all for but I got to take this week off on Tennessee. I mean, their team total is very high, and I just they could rest starters. They could be in letdown mode. I'm going to be betting the Vols team totals over like every week, but I'm giving it a break here.
Well, I can appreciate you giving it a break, but I did not give it a break last year with LSU, and I was happy that I didn't. You can find some 31 first half overs for Tennessee. That's where I'm going to put my money because I think this is 49-0, call off the dogs and play the fifth string in the second half. So, but I think Tennessee starts fast and continues to look the part.
And by the way, Kent State lost 55-24 at Pitt in week 1 and lost at home to FCS St. Francis 23-17 last week. I certainly don't disagree with any team total over or any really bets on Tennessee. For some reason, the numbers seem a little lofty for me this week. Last one, Toledo at Mississippi State, 7:30 p.m. ESPNU. BetOnline has Mississippi State at 12, the total 58. A lot of other books are 11.5. There's even an 11 I see, and some books have the total a good bit higher. At 60 at Caesars, but this is a total pass for me. I will just or you go ahead if you have anything on that.
No, I don't think there's a team I trust less in the SEC than Mississippi State currently.
I don't. Yeah, because I mean I think Vandy's better than them, and Arkansas is clearly better than it. This is what Toledo's done. They beat Duquesne 49-10. They beat UMass 38-23. They were 11-3 last year. 4 starters back on offense, 4 on defense. Now they lost DeQuan Finn, their star quarterback, to Baylor. But this is perennially, pretty much the top program in the MAC. They only lost by 2 at Illinois last year. They got smoked at Ohio State 2 years ago, but they only lost by 3 at Notre Dame in 2021. I think Blake Shapen's playing good. I mean, Mississippi State played great in the fourth quarter last week. They just took a little too long to get going. I think they can do things offensively. I don't know about getting stops, though. So Toledo, Mississippi State's a pass, although I will say that Coleman, the receiver, is playing good ball for Mississippi State, and so is Shapen.
Before we let everybody go, I've got one more that I'm going to be pretty invested in. I think this is a great spot for Tulsa. Oklahoma State coming off that very emotional double overtime win against Arkansas. Oklahoma State next week has Utah in a game that will decide the front runner in the Big 12. And Tulsa is at home and catching right at 20.
All right, for me, I'm going to fade Malik Willis and go Colts -3 at Green Bay. I'm also going to fade the Giants and go with the Commanders -1.5-ish at last look. But my biggest bet in the NFL, it was the rushing yards prop that I did last week on Jaden Daniels over 39.5. It's up to 52.5 this week at DraftKings. But I will gladly go over 52.5. He had 16 attempts 88 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns last week, and he got over 39.5 with like 10 minutes left in the second quarter. And I could not find a rushing yards prop for Anthony Richardson this morning, but if he had 43.5 last week, and I went over, and he only had 6 attempts, but he got 56 yards. If it's like 50 or less, I'm definitely on the over, and I might even go up all the way to like 53-ish, 55. I wouldn't go any higher than that on Anthony Richardson's rushing yards over, and also give me A.J. Brown's receiving yards over, which is 78.5. He had, I believe it was 119 last week, and he had 79 or more in 9 of the first 13 games for the Eagles last year. And I'll also be on the Chargers, minus 5.5 at the Panthers. And I'll also be on Brian T. City Ortega as an underdog at UFC 306 at the Sphere in Las Vegas. I'm trying to find his odds, and here they are. Oh, he's all the way up to plus 160 at BetMGM. All right, that's all I got, Mr. Greeson. Tell him about Jay's plays and whatever else.
Jay's plays is my afternoon email Monday through Friday. We're plus 74 units in the 2 years that we've done it, or almost 2 years. Still hammering out, trying to figure out some baseball stuff. Glad that football's here, moving right along, and you can follow along with my column, The 5 at 10, each morning at timesfreepress.com right here in Chattanooga.
There it is. Thanks for listening, and best of luck with your bets. Tell your friends. Get us some more listeners if you enjoy yourself on bets and ball games. And have a great weekend, everybody. For Jay Greeson, I'm Brian Edwards, Southeastern 16, over and out.